Welcome, Debbie, to the Manifest Incredible Love Show. I am so excited that you are here. Would you go ahead and give us a little bit of information about yourself and what you're currently doing?
Sure. My name is Debbie Montgomery Johnson. I am professionally, I have a vitamin supplement company, and I run that from my home as an entrepreneur. With the Woman Behind the Smile, it's a nonprofit that I started a few years ago after my relationship story. And I'm also on the board of directors of the Society of Citizens Against Relationship Scams, which is SCARS for short. And that's a nonprofit government registered organization out of Miami. And we work with survivors, victims, friends, family members of folks that have been in a relationship scam. And I keep very busy with that. In addition to, I'm a podcast host on Stand Up and Speak Up. I do a lot of writing and busy grandma.
Now, that is what really caught my attention is your story and how that has driven your purpose and what you have created now. I'm really curious. I'm really curious. Could you tell us a little bit more about like what happened during that time?
Yeah, well, to go back, it was in 2010, and I had been married for almost 26 years. My husband walked out the door on a Wednesday for a business trip, and Thursday morning I got a call. I call it the call from my oldest son, and he left me a message and said, "Mom, Dad just died." Well, completely turned my life upside down because Lou hadn't been sick. He'd had some medical things, but they were under control. And so all of a sudden I had to run his company. I had a job of my own. I had 4 kids, but 3 of them were grown and out of the house. So life changed in an instant. And I was very self-sufficient and one of those, fix it type people. And I wanted to make sure that I put up the smile and that everything was fine to the world. But I was really dying inside because I didn't have time to grieve what had happened because I was thrown into running the company, which was paying the family bills. And about 6 months into life after Lute passed, my girlfriends came to me and said, "You need a life," because all I was doing was working 20 hours a day. And then the hardest part for me was between midnight and 4 a.m. when I was actually getting in bed by myself for the first time in 26 years. I mean, by myself for the first time for a long period of time, not just, one night, 2 nights. And the bed sheets didn't move, the pillows didn't move. And I would get so sad because I was angry at Lou for dying. Why? I don't know, because it changed my plans. And he hadn't left all the passwords for the company. And there were just things that were, drove me crazy for such an articulate, brilliant guy. So I had to go through the grieving period, but I didn't have a chance to thoroughly do it because I was just too busy. I survived on being busy, what I call busyness. And my friend said, "You need a life." And at that point, they're like, "You need to start dating again." Well, I hadn't been on a date really other than my husband since I was, in my 20s, and I was 52 at the time. And so that in itself was very daunting because all of those feelings that you have when you're a teenager, you're not pretty enough, smart enough, all those not enoughs just welled up inside of me, even though I'd had a really nice career and I'd done some great things. But those insecurities came out. And so when I went online to online dating, I went to a safe place, a faith-based site. And I was trusting. I put everything out there as transparent as I could. I put some pictures. I told about the family. And I was so surprised at the response of the 50 to 65-year-old men. And I laughed because they couldn't write worth beans. It was worth a 5th grader. They showed up in those, what I call the wife beater t-shirts, the t-shirts without the sleeves. And I was like, "Oh no, this is not what I want." And then I was contacted by a fella. He was an international businessman. He was from London. He was a widower. And that in itself, I found that the guys that had lost their wives were a little more understanding of what I'd gone through than the fellas that were divorced, because the divorced guys are usually mad. There's the next wife around. And so, I could talk to this guy and tell him my story, and then he would give me his story about his wife dying. And it was a really neat friendship at first. I wasn't ready for a relationship in person because I probably was scared about that, to be honest about it. I hadn't been around a man romantically for a long, long time. And so for me, it was better to start dating without them being here, but to have a friend, someone that I could write to, someone that I could talk to, someone that I could, carry on a relationship at a distance. And that's what he was very good at. And again, I'm coming at it now from 10 years back, where I've learned a lot over 10 years, and I can tell you exactly what they did. But when I was in it, he was there for me. He allowed me to he listened. And that was a big thing. One of my girlfriends who is a social worker, she and I talked one time, and she said, Deb, if you look at yourself as a piece of Swiss cheese, you had a really big hole in you that felt like it hadn't been listened to. And when she said that, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so true. Lou and I had been married for a long time, but he was really brilliant, one of the smartest guys I'd ever met. And he was 6'4", really big guy. And so, when things, he kind of took over, and I allowed that, because, we were a family, and it was just my place. And that's kind of a funny thing to say, but I didn't want contention, and usually he had the best things going on, but every now and then I just sort of squashed my feelings. And I always said if I was going to die, I would die of an ulcer, because I didn't allow those negative feelings to come out and express them. I just kind of let it go. And after he died, and my friend told me that, I'm like, yeah, that's really true. Well, after the 2 years with Eric, his name was Eric, he listened so much over those 2 years. I had 4,000 pages of journal.
Oh my God.
Writing back and forth, because we were on Yahoo Chat, which I don't know if that's active now.
It's active now.
Yeah, but that was the big thing back then. That was the instant messaging. And so I had an online journal, and I copied and pasted every email, every chat that we had, and put it in my online journal, thinking I was having this great family history. And I've got great family something, but no one's reading it now but me, and only when I get interviewed by people. But he listened, and so over those 2 years, that hole started to fill up. And if I can be grateful for anything, it's that he filled that hole up from the inside out, and I've become much more vocal, not confrontational, but I'm willing to really stand up and speak up for myself and for others, and that was a gift. But back to him, yeah, over those 2 years, I had helped him with his company in the forms of sending money. The very first time, this is interesting, within a couple of weeks, and of course, I told you my story about not seeing a lot of really good guys. He said, Deb, I have a friend who's an engineer, and he's over here. He's overseas right now. He's having a hard time getting onto the website. Could you send a check into the dating site to get him on? And I'm thinking, well, heck, more men the merrier. Why not? So it's $40, $50. I don't remember what it was. And I sent directly to the dating site. Well, not knowing that by paying for his subscription, now that guy, who turned out to be a scammer also, had credibility because he's a paid client. And they, okay, but they wanted to see if I would be willing to send it. It's kind of a test. It's like scammers, when they hack into your bank account, they'll do $1 or 99 cents. They'll see if you're paying attention. And so that was kind of the way to say, okay, well, she's a little bit willing. Let's see what we can do here. And it went on from there. At the beginning, it was mostly things to help him with the company, with his business, because as a business person, I know that sometimes you don't get paid until after the job's done. It was a fun relationship because it got all those endorphins going and the love hormones. And middle of the night, when I would be exhausted, I would hear that ding, ding, ding of the Yahoo chat. And it was like Pavlov's dogs. I would jump out of bed, I'd run to my computer, and we'd be sitting there for hours typing, chatting. And then I'd have to get up and go to work. But it was so exciting to have someone that was there listening and just carrying on conversations. And we would talk about business. I even helped him do a business plan in addition to other things we were doing. But over the 2-year period of time, I did send him money. And it was quite a lot of money, but it's not money that I didn't have $1 million sitting in my bank account just to give to somebody. I found it. I sold jewelry. I turned in retirement accounts. I mean, if there's someone in your family that you want to help, you'll find the money.
Exactly.
You'll find it. And somehow I found it. And then at some point, people ask, did you have any feelings like there was something wrong here? Well, of course, every time he was supposed to get here and then the last minute he couldn't get here, it was a huge disappointment.
Oh,
Emotionally, it was this roller coaster. It was the highs and the lows and all that, which is part of relationships. But after a while, you get to a point where you've sent a bunch of money and then you're thinking, okay, if I walk away right now, I've lost everything I gave to him. But maybe this next time, it'll be the last time. And we call it now chasing the money. It's kind of like gambling. One more time, one more
one
time,
more time. That's right.
one more
And I
time.
interject for a quick moment because you
Yeah.
mentioned a lot of important aspects in your story that I just want to bring out. And one of the things is the willingness to listen. And that was something you wrote about in your book when you said, like, you were a businesswoman and you hid a lot of the pressures and the stress behind the smile. And so it was very nice for somebody else to listen to you. Did you feel like this was very important to you that you didn't share with other people, and but you felt safe sharing with somebody like online through dating?
Well, he became my life. He's they're very clever in isolating you from family and friends, because every now and then, I'd have a friend that would say, well, Deb, maybe you shouldn't be doing this. And when my older boys were like, Mom, don't, I'm thinking, gosh, you guys, I'm the adult here, leave me alone. And I stopped talking to them about it. I stopped talking to everybody about this. And my friends at school, the school district, how are things going? Oh, it's fine. That 4-letter fine word. And so I didn't, when I had the disappointments, I didn't have anybody else to talk to. He and I, he knew that some of those things really disappointed me. But then things would change and things would get good again. And then he would, just this next time, Deb, we're going to get this over with, and things. And, so again, it was this up and down. It was an emotional thing, but I thought he was going to be my family going forward. And so I was willing to keep it going until September 10th, 2010. And he comes on early that morning and said, Deb, how do you feel about forgiveness? Well, we'd had many spiritual, discussions over the 2 years. And so I put on my spiritual hat, got my scriptures out, and we started talking, and then we got disconnected after a while. He came back a few hours later, when he got disconnected, it's not something unusual that happened. He was over what I thought he was over in Malaysia or Hong Kong. And he said the internet was always kind of sketchy. So when he came back, he said, can we revisit what we were talking about? And we did. And into it, I was like, Eric, is there something that I did that we need to talk about forgiveness, putting it all on me? What did I do? And he said, no. He said, I have something to tell you that's going to hurt you. And I just need for you to be able to forgive me for doing this. And at that point, I'm thinking, well, you don't have to hurt me. I don't need this. He goes, I have a confession to make. And when I heard that, that was to me the gut punch, because I'd heard that once in my 26-year marriage, and it was not a good thing. And at that point, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And I said, tell me, what is this? He goes, I have to confess, this has all been a scam. And he's doing this via messaging, right? And I'm thinking, oh, something's wrong. You're sick. Something's happened. I said, you have to prove to me that this is now the truth. And how are you going to do that? And he said, on Yahoo Chat, there's a little camera and I can come on live. I'm thinking, for 2 years, I've asked you about that and you've never done that. So I'm sitting here, in my office, I've got dual screens, big screens, and on my screensaver was my handsome Brit, nice picture. And then all of a sudden there's this little camera that pops up, a little screen in the bottom of my screen. And now I'm looking at this dark-haired, dark-eyed, dark-skinned young man with a big smile on his face. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what has happened? And that in itself was almost like hitting a brick wall for me. It was a gift, like I call it my gift from God, where I just slammed on the brakes here. I saw him, my heart and was disconnected from my head and the whole story now, because then, I didn't tell you this, but I had been an intelligence officer for the Air Force. I'd been a senior bank manager. I had some legal training. I had all of this training in my background. I should have never been scammed, but I was, and that's the point. And when I saw this young man, I'm thinking, how do I catch him? I've watched enough shows with the FBI that what can I do to catch him? And I took a picture of him with my phone. I kind of held it down so he didn't see it, but I have that picture in my book. And it's the only picture that I have of him. But for me, that was great closure because I now had a picture to a person by a man pretending to be a woman. And it's just like, they're never going to talk. And they said, unless you can get him here to the United States, there's nothing we can do.
Oh my goodness.
And when I heard that, that's when that mask went up. That's where the woman behind the smile came from. Because after that, I pretended to everybody that it just didn't work out and that I was fine. I was dying inside. I couldn't tell anybody. I blamed myself. You know, it was the shame of being so taken and the heartache because he ripped my heart out, and my trust in men, my trust in people, you know, was really damaged at that point. And thank goodness for my mom and dad, because unfortunately, this is my one true regret, is that I'd gotten them involved. They helped me out for $100,000.
Wow.
And they were retired. And when I heard about the scam and he confessed, I called my mom and dad and I was like, I'm really sorry, you have to come over here, you know. And for 10 years, I have paid them back multiple times, and we ended up buying them a home this year. And I finally felt like, okay, I'm off the hook, you know. But it was fundamentally a huge change in my relationship with my parents. It actually made it much stronger because they were with me the whole time. They were the only people that knew about the story. I didn't even tell my kids for quite a while because it's embarrassing, you know. Smart, well-trained, everything that I shoulda, coulda, woulda, it shouldn't have happened.
It didn't.
But as you know, I'm talking about it today. So maybe in the eternal plan, it was supposed to happen. Because a friend of mine said when she heard the story, she said, you got to tell it, because my mom was taken for $80,000. Another woman came up and said, I was in a relationship for a year, and it turns out he had a family somewhere else. And so I kept hearing of all these women that had had some sort of relationship fraud. And they said, you have to speak up with this one. And I did. And it's the best thing I ever did. You know, it's not about me. It's not about me. It's about you. It's about your friends. It's about our mothers, our grandmothers. So
I love that you brought this up because this is something that a lot of people struggle with. And I personally struggled with too, is that not good enough feeling. And when you feel like you're not good enough, like all of the other stuff that's like shame or what you would think other people would judge you for, you hide. And I used to do that with myself. I grew up in like a household where I was always being criticized. I was always being told like, you could have got better grades, or you could have gotten into a better university, or you could have married better. Like I've been with my husband for 12 years and I knew him since I was in middle school. But my mom, she was always like, don't just settle on one person. Like you should marry somebody that's 2 years older than you and has a great job and has parents that are not divorced. And so growing up, I was conditioned into believing like I had to show up a certain way. I had to be seemingly on the outside successful with a wonderful job, with a husband that's rich, who has a fantastic family. And so as I kept going, a lot of my friendships, a lot of my personal relationships, I never told them anything. I never told them my opinions, my thoughts. I always was that people pleaser. I was always like, I'm just going to agree with everything you say because I want you to like me. But also there was that innate fear that if I ever shared anything that they disapproved of, it would have been like my relationship to my mom, where oh, you're not good enough, so I'm going to reject you. And I felt that my whole entire life. Luckily, like my personal relationship with my husband was very good, but there was one point where I almost divorced him. I said, you know what, like my life is a hot mess. I don't want to put this burden on you. Let's get a divorce. And this was like in the middle of my pregnancy. Can you imagine? It was like the middle of my pregnancy, my business wasn't going. I just felt so bad about myself. My body was changing. And that shame that you speak about, that shame of like, I just don't feel like other people would understand. So let me eject myself from society and close myself off into this little bubble and just not talk to anybody about anything. And I was in this hermit shell for a very,
Yeah.
very long time. And I know you talk about your next book about being fearless. Like, what was it like for you to kind of step out of the victim mentality and be like, okay, I can actually do something about this? What was that switch of like, let me not be the person that's hiding everything anymore?
I I grew up with three brothers, and when I heard from the FBI that I had been a victim, I'm like, I'm not a victim. I don't like that word. I'm going to rise above this. And I actually started dating within months of this thing happening, which most people are like, how in the world did you do that? The one I didn't want him to have the power over me. I knew that there was somebody out there for me. Now I went through a couple of dating sites. I'm thinking, oh, these guys are lying to me in person. But I was able to find, I met the man that I met and married to. I've been married for almost 7 years. I met him 3 months after the scam. And the scammer kept a scammers, we say it's a they, not a he, but in this case, I think it was a he, kept in touch with me until he realized that I was actually starting a relationship with someone real in person. And then when he knew I was okay, I never heard from him again. So the thing that gave me the courage is that when I started dating my husband, he was very supportive of me speaking up. He was vulnerable about something in his life, which his friend said, don't tell her. And he did. We were sitting at Denny's for dinner. And then I told him my story, and he said, Deb, you have got to stand up to this one and own it and take it and speak out about it. And that gave me the courage. And then I've done a lot of work. I've worked with Awakening Giants, which is a group that I met in San Diego. And I did a confidence course, and I climbed up a pole 30 feet high, and I jumped and caught a trapeze like 8 feet away with just a harness on my back, nothing else. And when I had what I call my Tinkerbell moment, when I closed my eyes and I visualized it and I jumped and I caught it and I'm hanging there and my feet are kicking off like a Tinkerbell. And I was like, I can do anything now. I can do anything I put my mind to. And I have. And since then, that's where the whole, the book's called A Gift Called Fearless. If you read it, it's not about anybody for real. But I'm sure that there are parts of every character in me or my friends. And it's all about, do what you want, because you only get this life once. We're only going to go this route once. And if you want to be, if you want to be do a workout class and you're overweight, well, don't do it. Sorry, we're going to get noise out back. Don't do it for everybody else. Do it for you. I swim in the morning with 70 and 80-year-olds, and I'm looking at these ladies, and some of them are pretty big gals. And I'm like, you know what? Good for you. I hope I'm here when I'm 80, and doing what you're doing. It doesn't matter what other people think. And I know that's trite to say, but in reality, what matters is how you feel. And I'm not always fearless. My daughter and I were talking the other day when I was yakking at her about something, and I said something about not wearing, short sleeve shirts because of I call them my bat wings. I got them from my grandma, my angel wings. And Jenny's like, Mom, don't be so deprecating. Don't shame your body like that. I'm thinking, okay, I shouldn't. I do, but I shouldn't, because I'm healthy and I'm really grateful for being healthy, but I'm not the ideal. But here's the thing, over the years, when I was heavy as a kid, then I was shamed at that point. You're too big, although you're an athlete and you have big bones. When Lou died, I lost a lot of weight. I got very thin, and I was in my little skinny jeans thinking, okay, I'm really looking good now. And one of his best friends came to me and said, you look awful. You're too gaunt. And then I'm looking going, okay, same bones as when I was big, when I was younger, but now they're smaller. And I said, I'm darned if I do, I'm darned if I don't. If I'm too heavy, then people are saying I'm too heavy. If I'm too skinny, people are saying I'm too skinny. Where do I feel comfortable? Where am I fearless in saying, okay, this is good for me, or maybe, a couple pounds, but I don't look at the number on the scale anymore. I try not to. It's how do I feel? If I feel a little bit, then I'm like, okay, so do something about it. Get up and go swimming in the morning. Get your rear end out of bed and go swim. You'll feel better. And then I justify having a handful of M&Ms during the day because I've done my swimming. But
Oh my goodness.
You gotta stand up for yourself.
It's so true. Like, You mentioned like your even now, like body image is such is a thing that's close to your heart. And I was at the gym this morning actually, and I always wear a long sleeve crop top with shorts because I love the way my legs look. And that was something I always told people. If you did not feel comfortable with who you are, and if you want to start integrating like self-love into your life, is just find that one small thing that you love about yourself, and eventually the more you focus on how much you love yourself, it grows. And that's what I did when I jumped back from pregnancy. I gained like 40 pounds, by the way. I was
Good for you. Me too.
really, it was like almost 60 the whole duration of the pregnancy. And I was never, I'm a short, like 5 foot woman. So that the 60 pounds is a lot. And I've never seen myself like that. And it triggered me so badly about what other people said, like, oh, you're not good enough. You're not good enough. And that point, I was like, I internalized, like, I'm not good enough. I no longer look beautiful. And that was such bullshit. It was such bullshit. As soon as I went to the gym and I was like, I'm not going to stand in this negativity. I believe that I'm beautiful. And I just focused on one area of my body that I was like, I love my lower body. Let me focus on that. And everything else came together. So now I'm now like 10 pounds away from my goal weight, or like what I was pre-pregnancy, where I felt the heaviest, the healthiest, not the heaviest. My apologies. But I took off my crop top today. I
Oh,
took
did
off
you?
my crop top today and I was walking around the gym in my sports bra. And even though I wasn't where I wanted to be, I just I felt comfortable. I felt comfortable. And people notice that. Like if you love yourself and you're confident, that's all that matters. That's all that matters. And I can literally be back in my old state where I was pregnant, and people would tell me, you're so beautiful, you're radiant. And I would say, no. I would say, no, you're just being nice. But now, if you notice somebody giving you a compliment, I'm like, thank you.
That's
Thank you.
it. Yeah, absorb it and say thank you. Because I've learned too, we're such givers, but we never receive what the other person's giving us. If they're giving us that compliment, if we say, no, we're not, we're not that pretty, then we've just cut off their ability to give because we're not receiving it. And that's tough because I want people to give. I do this to my mom all the time because I'll say, Mom, you look great today. Nah, it's just a bit. I'm like, Mom, say thank you. Just say thank, just say thank
Just
you
say thank you.
and breathe it in. And breathe it in. But it's so difficult. I mean, we are the worst ones we don't want to forgive ourselves for the things we did. And that's the tough thing. I could have forgiven the scammer much easier than I could forgive myself.
Really?
But, if I didn't forgive myself, I never could have moved on. And that's what I found with people that have also been scammed, is that you have to say, okay, it happened. It was a mistake, or maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was supposed to happen, but what have you learned from it? What have you grown from this experience? Because as I was telling someone the other day, all the great business people in the world have failed.
Exactly. Oh my
Because
goodness. Now, since our show is about like how we can be able to create more fulfilling love, be more aware of what's happening, could you share with us how you shifted your mentality after that? And now with your husband of 7 years, like what really makes you stand out from before, like your mentality, how it shifted and how you entered your relationship now?
Well, I grew up, and I also realized that, if anybody has been married for more than a week, you realize that they're going to have your ups and downs. And with my husband now, there are things that he was married for 28 years. So there are things that we didn't do then. And it could be sitting together watching TV. I mean, together, same chair, right beside each other, holding hands when we walk, going out and talking, not being afraid to say something. And I when we first met, I was like, look, if something happens, if I feel uncomfortable about something that I've said or you've said, we need to talk about it. And we would walk 3 miles a day holding hands. And you can't be mad at somebody if you're holding their hand, right? You can't be upset if you're smiling. So I really try to do those things. We are very intentional about the time we spend together. At night, he'll get home at 7. I turn off my computers. I could work all day long, but when he gets home, it's our time. If he calls me and says, hey, I've got to go look at a job, can you go for a ride? I call it our ride alongs. I'll do what I need to do so that I can leave the house and go look at a job for a couple of hours in the car. We love to go in the car together. We love to talk. I never did that before. I didn't spend time with Lou, but I'm at a different point in my life. I'm in my 60s now, and I already have my company. I've already raised my kids. I've got grandkids now, but I don't have the pressures that I had in building companies or working or having small children. So my life's a little bit different, but I do what I enjoy. And I also learned to say no. I was really busy when I was younger. I was trying to be that super mom that everybody liked and everybody, knew they could count on me. I learned to say no, because at some point you have to take care of yourself first. It's not selfish, it's self-care. And it could be swimming, it could be running, it could be whatever, reading, whatever you feel is important for you, you got to do it. Because it's like putting on the airplane, when they tell you to put on the mask, put it on yourself before you put it on your kids. You got to fill up yourself first, because if you don't, then you're going to be so depleted you can't give anymore. And be honest, like you and I have both hidden things in our lives. And I felt many times over my married life that I was put on this pedestal of being perfect. And nobody's perfect. We try to live up to that woman behind the smile, put on the smile and you're fine and everything's good. Everybody has a crack. And it's not to be ashamed of. It's to say, okay, well, in my growth, I've learned from ABCD. For me, I learned to be careful about who I give money to. And I'm one of those damn Yankees. I never gave money to anybody. So the hook of online relationships is that it gets you. If you don't stop it within the first 2 weeks, you're hooked. They are very manipulative. They're very well trained, and they've got you until you're broke and broken. That's their job. They're ultimate salespeople, and they are good at what they do.
Yes, they are. That's why so many people have fallen for that. But just to circle back to some of the amazing shares that you've just mentioned with your long-term relationship with your husband now, is being intentional about spending time together, filling your own cup. That really stood out to me, to make sure that you are fulfilled first so that you can give to other people. And another one, taking your drives together, like finding activities that you enjoy doing together, because there might be things that you don't enjoy doing together, but being intentional about the time you spend together and you still enjoy doing those activities together. I'm going to remember the hold your hand forever, and they'll never be mad at you because, because I like that. I love that one. Hold their hand. They can't be mad at you.
It's like I interviewed a gal the other day. We were talking about parents. That she wants 1 million parents that will stop yelling at their children. And she said, Deb, because I have little grandkids that get pretty loud, and you just want to go strangle them. She said, try to get a 3-year-old, because you can't talk them out of a temper tantrum. Get them to smile, because you can't be in a temper tantrum if you have a smile on your face. And she said it's hysterical to try to see them put a smile on their face. Same with a spouse. We can walk away, we can hide. I mean, I spent a lot of time in my first marriage behind doors. I would go in my room, I would read, I would just separate. I didn't want to say I'm sorry, even though I might have said I'm sorry. And he was like, yeah, right, you really mean it. I said it just to kind of smooth things over. But I say what I mean now, and with CJ, and we're very open with each other. I mean, we've got grown kids and things happen, but we put us first. And yeah, when I got the call yesterday, Mom, I could use your help in Hawaii. CJ's like, you're going to go to Hawaii again? Well, it's grandmother duty. Yeah, I think it sounds like fun, but it's a long way to go from a beach to a beach to take care of 2 kids. But I do it because I know it helps my son out. But if something were important here with my mom and dad or my husband, I would say no to my son. Say, I'm really sorry, but I can't come right now. I would if I could. So I have learned to say no, but I do love being part of a family and being in a relationship where we'll text each other. He'll leave the house in the morning and text me and say, I'm just thinking about you.
Aww.
And that is so sweet, or he's out on the golf course and I'll send a quick one, good luck in your game today. Or I'm thinking of you, thinking of my honey. Those little things really add up. and they're important. I didn't do that the first time around, got too wrapped up in life. But now, as I know, we're not guaranteed tomorrow. And so I want my kids and my family, everybody to know that if something were to happen to me, they knew I loved them, because I say it every time. Every time I talk to my dad, and I talked to him multiple times during the day, I'm like, Dad, I love you. CJ, I love you. Kids, I love you. And they'll say the same thing back, because you just never know. Don't leave things unsaid because you're afraid of saying them, because you may not get a chance to say them, and life's too short for that.
I tell my husband the same thing. Well, one of the things you mentioned is boundary setting, like saying no, because saying no is a boundary.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, like I come from a place of people pleasing because I always wanted to be accepted. And for me, it was very hard to say no. And the same goes for like when I was in a relationship, I used to just always cater to other people, and to the point where it wasn't serving me anymore, to the point where I was tired, but I would still show up. Like, and this still happens to me, by the way, but I'm more aware of it now. I've been like working, and then somebody at the gym that I met, and she was like, come work out with me. And I said, sure, let's do that. But I pulled an all-nighter and I still went to work out at the gym. And I texted her and I said, oh, I'm here. I'll just be on the treadmill waiting for you. And no response. And she didn't show up. So
Uh-huh.
I thought to myself, I said, oh my God, I could have just told her no because I was so exhausted. And I was thinking about that. I said, what if I just texted her and I told her like I couldn't make it? But instead I was like, you know what? I'm going to show up. I'm going to show up because that's the person that I am. And I show up and she didn't. And I didn't even receive a text message saying, hey, I'm going to be late, or hey, I can't make it. And I held on to that resentment for the rest of the day. And so now when I see her at the gym, I'm like avoiding her because I couldn't confront her as to like, why didn't you text me? Or why didn't you tell me that you weren't going to show? And I was just beating myself up about, oh, like I'm compromising my own needs to put other people's needs in front of my own. And noticing how I do that in all of my relationships, how I ended up resenting people,
Yeah.
how I ended up compromising myself and not showing up the way I wanted to in other aspects of my life because I was just so tired and putting all my time and energy in things that probably didn't serve me in the long run. So you sharing just saying no to take care of yourself, even if you had to turn away your son for that moment to put your family and your husband before you, is incredible. It's an incredible share because a lot of people don't do that, and I don't do that. Well, now I do, but
Yeah, well, I learned something. My guest last week was talking about this. You'll have to look this word up. Is ho'oponopono. It's an old Hawaiian ancient healing practice, and you say I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. It was incredible. I did that. I listened to one the other day. It was like 40 minutes before I went swimming, and I didn't turn on the TV. I just listened to that with some Hawaiian music, and it was, I started thinking about people that I wish I had said those things to, like my husband who passed away. I'm sorry, because I really got angry at him for a long time. But she said, if you can't say I'm sorry or please forgive me, then just say I love you and thank you, and say it to yourself. Ho'oponopono. Look that up. Ho'oponopono. Ho'oponopono.
And can you say it for me one more time? I love you.
I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And if you say it to yourself, it just calms you. And then think about, because I was thinking about some friends that I've lost over the years, not passing away, but I've moved in a different way, and they couldn't accept what I did. And we were separated. Our friendships have been separated, and that weighs heavily on me. And my friend said, you know what? You're not responsible for them. You're responsible for you. And if you say that, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you, your energy, we're all energy, will clear you and maybe those people around you, and you won't even know it. She goes, but you're not responsible for the way people react. And I'm not. I've told my kids, I said, if something's happened, then you say you're sorry. You're not responsible for the way the other person takes your I'm sorry. That's up to them.
Wow.
So, but I love that ho, and I call it the H word because I had to figure out how to say it. But it really is, it's an ancient practice. And I'm thinking, you know what, we got to bring some of those ancient practices back. And that was a good one for me. So ho'oponopono.
Ho'oponopono. I
Yep.
love that. Thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
now that we are coming to a close, I know that you have something special for the audience members who are joining us today. Could you share with us what your free gift is?
Actually, if you go to my website, I have a download. It's the 7 steps to standing up in your power. And it's about anything. And contact me if someone. Here's the thing: if someone has been a victim to what's an online relationship, email me. I'm always available. I do have my books, and if there's someone out there that would like to have the book, just get in touch with me. I'll send it out to you too. But there's the free download is at my website, The One Behind the Smile.
Perfect. And for everybody who are joining us today, I'll go ahead and link Debbie's free gift link below, and you can contact her and reach her at thewomanbehindthesmile.com. Is that correct, Debbie?
It is. Yep, it is.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Debbie, for joining us today. And for everybody else watching, I hope that I will see you in the next episode. Oh my goodness. Okay.